All right, thank you very much, Mr. Barredo. Now we go on to our exciting Q&A session. We already have a lot of questions from you guys. But again, if you are joining us late and you didn't catch it, you can still ask questions by clicking the Q&A button in your Zoom app. But before we move into the Q&A proper, we have another poll. So let's please flash it. All right, what do you think will have the biggest influence in the market in the next 3 months? Is it A, economic performance, B, COVID-19, infection rates or vaccine development, C, performance of the US markets, D, outcome of the US elections, or E, foreign flows? Okay, we've seen the market have some exciting activity over the past couple of days. And when you look at call advantage, you look at the mainliners, we've seen also a change in sentiment. We've seen foreign buyers in companies like AC and even vulnerable stocks like JFC have seen some exciting price performance. So there, what do you think will have the biggest influence in the market in the next 3 months? Is it economic performance, the COVID-19 outbreak, the performance of the US markets, the outcome of the US elections, and foreign flows? All right, I think we can flash the answers already. All right, 56% of you guys think that the COVID-19 situation has the largest impact in the market. So I can't wait to ask that question, Sir Juanis and Ms. April, because I don't think there's a vaccine yet. So that's a very big question mark on my part. All right, so let's move on to the questions that we have from our panel. First of all, April and Juanis, I'd like you to answer our first poll. What do you think drives IPO performance? Is it the company story? Is it the pricing? Is it the overall performance of the market? Or is it the trader buzz? April, let's start with you. First? Yes, go ahead, April.
Actually, if there was an answer na all of the above, I would choose that. Pero yeah, so okay. Yeah, it really is actually a combination of everything. I mean, the stars have to be aligned, in other words. You have to have a good story, the right valuations, the market has to be doing well, and then of course there also has to be that buzz about that company. Everybody seems to want it for the price to go up. The funny thing is, maybe in the US, for example, you know, as long as it's growing and the valuation is expensive, okay lang, like the price will go up. Unfortunately, the other stocks that are listed in the Philippines are also cheap. So you don't have that as a benefit na kwento-kwento lang okay na tayo.
Okay. Sir Juanis?
Yeah. I think in my part, I mean, although I agree with April, a lot of these things are in combination, but I really feel that if you're talking about short term, I think the hype and the storyline of the company, I think, really proves out to be a lot more impactful. But if you're talking about something in the longer term, I think the company's growth story will really be it, because although successful or non-successful, as some of the samples I showed you, SM, beautiful long-term growth story, eventually pulled itself out of that rut and eventually went to where it is today. So, I mean, that tells you down the road, if you're willing to hold this for long, the growth story is, of course, a long-term component. But if you're talking about in the matter of the first few weeks of the IPO, I think the hype is really important, and maybe even the size is very important, because, for example, in the case of Merrimart, wasn't so big, and the stock managed to be able to appreciate very well.
Let's now switch to Slido. Again, we're not using Slido for the questions, guys. If you have any questions, just type it in the Q&A portion. We are just using Slido to flash the question. So first, I think we've had this a couple of customers asking this: is the Converge IPO oversubscribed? I think they're alluding to they're possibly predicting what the performance would be in the first day of trading. Because if over subscribed, we can expect, you know, better price movement. What do you think, guys?
I think they released naman the foreign portion is 2 times oversubscribed. The local portion, I think, is just okay. Well, of course, we don't have the numbers. It's more anecdotal because of the size. I think the size is the issue. For example, a Mary Mart, the size was what, 1 billion something. This one, you have the 25 billion IPO. So of course, you know, it's a lot harder to get buyers for such a big IPO. You know.
Okay. All right. This one I've noted, sir. You wanna?
Yeah, go ahead. I think April got it.
All right, all right. So I think this is one of the questions I also want to ask personally, and some customers also want to know. You mentioned, April, kanina, that only 30% will flow into the Converge business.
Yes.
And what is the risk that you see in that scenario if majority of the proceeds will be pocketed by the original founders, or will be used as an exit by the founders?
Well, you know, actually, we asked them that parang it's more like, you know, it kind of leaves a bad taste in the mouth that a company will do an IPO, but then the beneficiary will be the original shareholders and not the company itself. Because in general, you want to give a company money so that it can grow, di ba? And then
Yes.
yun pala, imbis na mapupunta sa sa company, mapupunta sa shareholder. So it kind of leaves a bad taste in the mouth. But when we asked the company about it, they said, well, we were targeting a certain level of free float. And they said, you know, that said, they also did not want too much dilution because they didn't need that much money. Because as I've said earlier, the balance sheet is super under leveraged. You don't usually, you're not very efficient if you rely on equity capital to fund your expansion. You need to borrow some money so that the ROE actually goes up. So, you know, for them, they said that is the reason why they're doing that. So a little bit of exit also for the shareholders, and you know, just a little money, because you know they said they already have bank lines amounting to 30-something billion pesos. So I think they would use that so that they can lever up the company and boost the ROEs, and then the shareholders will just get the money, the original shareholders. But then again, you know, medyo masama yung dating, yun lang.
No. Okay. All right. So also you mentioned a while ago, April, that the upside seemed to have been priced in already.
Yes.
So I think this is one of the questions of our customers. What do you think now is the biggest upside that will cause that upside surprise for Converge?
Well, honestly, think about it. If they are successful in growing their profits by 50% consistently for the next 5 years, okay? So, for example, this year they'll have an EBITDA of around 7 billion, and say the next, in 2 years, that 7 billion will be 14 billion, and then another 2 years that will be 28 billion. So you have a 126 billion market cap company having a 28 billion EBITDA, which means that it's not expensive anymore, diba? It will be like 5 times EBITDA. And, you know, it is a possibility because the market is underpenetrated. They said nga the potential market is what, 18 million homes, and they're only doing 3.5 million homes. So in that respect, yes, it is a possibility. And if they grow that big, then definitely the price is justifiable. The problem is, of course, as I've said, they're no longer a small company. They're already a big company. And alam nyo naman yan, if you're into business, when you're small, it's easy to grow profits double, triple. But when you're already earning a certain level and when you already have 1 million customers, for you to grow it by another million and then by another 2 million, that's just harder, you know. That is the risk. Parang minadali siya. So that is the worry na execution risk goes up significantly as you grow bigger.
Okay. So, all right. So I think we have a question for Sir Juanis here. Sir, can the accumulation also become distribution? You mentioned that there's an initial upside, then there's usually a correction, then there's the accumulation.
Yes. So actually what happens is it actually begins as an accumulation. So that phase I'm talking about where the consolidation comes in, what happens is that, so there is either a group of people or investment group or whatever start, and they're attempting to be able to build it. But normally what will happen is that something disappointing comes out in a company. And like you're saying, the person who was accumulating will turn himself around and saying, oops, I came in too early, or maybe the company is not leading up to what we expected them to do. And that converts itself into be a distribution run. And that's why I said the fifth phase is normally, you could see a price push or it could be a price plummet. So it's possible it can be that type of distribution, but normally it does not begin that way in the beginning. Normally it's an accumulated effort. So people are buying and then something proves to be wrong in what happened and they change their mind and things go sour.
Okay. Sir, another question, because ito I've observed in some of the IPOs, and I get this question a lot from customers. I guess we know the answer, but we just want to know the backing behind it. So for instance, you have an IPO and the IPO corrects on the first day. What happens there? Meaning, may bibili ba ng IPO and then the first trading day when the bell rings, they sell it? Ganun ba yun? Parang...
Well, yes. I mean, you can't help it. And every IPO will have a scalper. And, there's some people out there, they just want to make a quick buck because they just want to take advantage, knowing that IPOs in general do well. And so they see on that first flush day where prices get a bit too lofty, they take their profits, they run, and then they'll wait to see what happens to it later, right? And remember, guys, for example, guys like me being traders, I mean, we're very short-term in our orientation, and we don't know what's going to happen, especially if you know that eventually a sell-off can happen also. That's going to also contribute to the fact that people just want to take their profit first, wait to see where the price will eventually stabilize in and come back there later just to make their quick buck.
Okay. All right, sir. Sige, thank you. So I guess for customers who are not able to get a piece of the IPO, or those who got just a little bit of allocation, I have a next question for April. I think, what do you suggest is a good entry price for Converge? If we're watching the market,
wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. Well, of course, for us, 5 times EV EBITDA, but that's, baka patayin na tayo. So baka the company might just go private, because like that would imply what kind of a price? 7 or 6 times EV EBITDA. So 50 billion market cap, something like that. That's really too low, but maybe a 7 times EV EBITDA for next year, so market cap of it's still too low, probably 70-80 billion market cap, but it's really too low, I think. But if it happens, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and who knows? I mean, if prices go down, I think definitely it's a good long-term buy. If that happens, I think you should consider buying the stock.
Okay.
May I add something there, Ed?
Go ahead, Sir Juanis.
I think for you people, I know it's very, I don't mean to be able to sidestep what April is saying, but I have seen very expensive stocks never go cheap, right? And because either people like their story or they I mean, that's happened many times in Jollibee before they ran into trouble before. We would never see Jollibee go back down to its fair value. It was always trading above it. And so here you're just going to be a guessing game trying to figure out where, what price you want to buy at. I don't think that should be the case. Especially for traders, you just have to see where the accumulation happens to be at, and then you react when you see what you're seeing there. You cannot just say the price should be here and that will automatically go to the price you want. That may not happen. So your mind has to be ready that if you see an accumulation phase, even if it's still expensive, you just have to be ready to act in those particular times as well. So like again, which hat are you wearing? Are you an investor hat or are you a trader? If you're a trader, you have to be prepared for that moment where it's timely. Sometimes we may have to buy expensive to make even more money, but it's something that we do.
Okay, thank you, sir. So another question that's a bit tricky. Do you recommend to avoid or sell PLDT and Globe for the meantime and consider Converge? Of course, Converge is eating into their market share, and also we have DITO coming up as well. Ms. April?
No, I think you should buy PLDT. Fundamentally,
Okay.
well, as for eating market share, we actually asked that of PLDT, and they said kasi the problem was in the past they had the DOLE issue, if you remember, because they hire contractual employees to do the the connections, and DOLE all of a sudden said no, that's illegal, you're not allowed. So they weren't able to connect a lot of homes in 2018 and 2019. But then if you ask them what's your plan going forward, first of all, during the first half, they're already showing some signs of picking up on the subscriber ads on the fixed broadband. Now they're also adding customers at the same pace as Converge. Second, they have more money. Third, they have more capacity. Fourth, yes, they have DSL customers, but I think they have an 18-month plan where they will be converting those DSL customers into fiber customers, because they realize the reason why there are a lot of complaints is because they have a lot of customers on DSL, and they have to switch them to fiber just to get rid of those complaints. So they are doing the right thing. And, that said, these companies, I think, provide at least some cash dividends, and are trading at much cheaper valuations. And if you look at the PLDT as well, you will see all the insiders are actually buying the stock, and they will not be buying the stock unless they're excited about something. So I wouldn't be selling PLDT to buy Converge. I think it's just a different, it's just a different stock, diba? In light of the valuation and the growth that it can deliver, I think it's still a good stock to buy and to own, and it gives you some dividends of around 5%, which is very good in a time like this when time deposit rates are 1 to 2%.
All right. So again, if you have any more questions, just click the Q&A tab in the bottom of your Zoom app. We're not using Slido, however, it's just using it for presentation purposes only. So for our next question, ma'am, I think this is again for both of you as well. What's your take on the PHR follow-on offering?
Yeah, actually, I have lots of slides. Are we going to
Go ahead,
show them? Okay, so yeah, good thing we are prepared for that. So I'll be sharing my screen. Okay, hold on. So anyway, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible because we're all limited in time. So anyway, PHR is the holding company for gaming and hospitality of Udena, or Dennis Uy. And as a background, they have 2 provisional licenses from PAGCOR to operate integrated resorts of with casinos and The first one is Emerald Bay Resort and Casino in Mactan Island, which is scheduled for opening in 2022. The second one will be in Clark Free Zone with no schedule yet. So anyway, just some re-IPO details, follow-on offering. So just want to highlight that this stock is smaller, and all the shares that will be sold are primary shares. As you can see, 300 to 450 million primary shares. Market cap is 8.8 billion. So the amount to be raised is, I think, 700 million pesos. Okay, 756 million pesos. So really a small follow-on offering. Free float will be, just as you can see here on the right side, post-offering free float is 18%. Okay, so none of the proceeds will go to Dennis Uй's family. It will all go to the company. So what are the positives? It's a small issuance, so again, lighter. It's easier to go up. And as far as execution is concerned, they have a seasoned management team because they hired people who in the past worked for casinos, not only in the Philippines, but also overseas, and also somebody who used to manage Shangri-La. So it looks like they have the right people to deliver, and there are certain competitive advantages of Emerald Bay Resorts and Casino. First, it's located in Mactan, Cebu, which has an international airport for foreign tourists, and secondly, it's the second most preferred destination by foreign tourists in the Philippines. And if you look at the location of Emerald Bay Resort and Casino, it's going to be located next to, our favorite vacation spots in Cebu, like Shangri-La, Movenpick, Abaca Boutique, and Sheraton, all these nice places to go to in Cebu. And aside from that, it has a 7-year exclusivity to operate a casino in the city starting from 2022. So that's a huge lead start. And like in the Philippines, you had those casino hotels operating at the same time. So there's more competition. Okay, and in terms of valuations, it is actually very cheap. As you can see, in terms of capacity, it's around 30% that of Soler, which is listed, but in terms of market capitalization, it is only 10%. But on the negative side, okay, PHR itself has no track record. It is currently only operating a boutique resort in Bohol, Donatello Resort and Sanctuary, and that hotel generated only revenues of 83 million in 2018 and 62 million in 2019. So really very small. If this Emerald Bay Resort does not deliver, then they have problems. And of course, we now have COVID-19 with no clarity as to when tourism will return and when the problems will be resolved. And it's a highly leveraged company, as you can see. They will be raising less than 1 billion pesos. But the total amount they need to develop Emerald Bay Phase 1 is 21 billion pesos, and they will be relying on debts largely. Around 66% will be funded by debts, 14.7 billion. And of course, we know how it's very expensive to fund the debts, and they will not yet be operating until 2022. So that makes the company risky.
Mm-hmm. April, is that also the reason why it's priced 50% than current price, the FOO? And if so, what is the impact of that pricing in the current price?
Well, versus the listed price, I don't think naman that they price it relative to the listing price. Pero okay, of course they have to price it cheap because there's a risk na yun na nga, malugi yung company. But that said, okay, if I were to buy that stock, what is my risk when the stock actually lists? Of course, once it lists, everybody who bought in the IPO is already making money. So definitely there is a temptation that when the market opens and it opens at 3 pesos, everybody who bought in the IPO can sell and can make money. So that's another risk that I can see. If you buy it in the IPO, may chance na unahan magbenta yan. And you're making money at any price above 168.
Yes. So there's a real tendency for the price to also go down there.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So let's go back to the slide. I think let's talk about the current market situation, sir and ma'am. So the PSEi closed at 6484. Some fantastic rally. Can you give us some insights, a no-nonsense perspective on your expectations for the next 3 to 6 months?
Should I start or should Juanis start?
Well, I can start. I mean,
yeah,
I talked about what my projections were earlier, and we were looking at a quiet movement which automatically erupted, and I'm glad it happened sooner rather than later. And hopefully between that next zone of resistance closer to above 6566, if we're lucky, then we can go up to 7,000. But like I said, I am projecting in that we're going to have a correction or consolidation right after that, because like I said, in a staircase type of recovery, you're not going to get a up and away move. It may seem that way now. We're going to pay for that in a little while because too many people are making a lot of money, and it's going to generate that type of movement. So if your expectation the next 3 months or 6 months, you will see that seesaw or that staircase type of effect. So once we hit that level where the market seems to be comfortable with the profit, they will take it, and you will have another market pause or reaction. So you have to build that in. I mean, this is not just going to go straight up and never look back. So, and the fundamentals don't agree with that type of scenario, and I let April take the ball from there.
Yeah. So fundamentally, okay. Yeah. I think the main catalyst, of course, is the COVID numbers. And I think a while ago you had a survey, and I think I agree with the results that what will drive it really is the COVID numbers. But then again, earlier on, I guess we were talking and I said, yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that the COVID numbers are going down, but the numbers that are coming out have to validate that the lower COVID numbers is leading to faster growth. And unfortunately, okay, just this week, I don't know if you've been reading our research, but we talked about two things that I think are very good advanced indicators that the third quarter could be very disappointing. First of all, Pure Gold already warned that full year revenues could be flattish, coming from up 15% in the first half. So what does that mean, diba? Parang what? How can your revenues be flat if it was already up 15% in the first half? Diba? And they just said, think about it, in the fourth quarter, a lot of companies actually gave 13th month pay during the COVID lockdown. So walang 13th month pay, and then walang Christmas party. If you own a company, most likely your budget for Christmas gifts is down. Okay, so well, diba? Well, that's kind of scary. That's the first thing. Secondly, URC came out with results today or yesterday, and then they shared the detail from Nielsen that third quarter sales were actually weaker, which also came to a surprise to me because I thought the second quarter was the worst. So how come your second quarter sales are down even more relative to the second quarter? I think the expectation is second quarter is down, third quarter is still down, but down by a slower pace. But I mean, surprisingly, these companies are saying otherwise. So personally, I'm worried. And then fourth quarter could still be bad because of those factors. So I mean, how can you justify a continuous increase in the market if the COVID numbers are not translating to better profits, because at the end of the day, the reason why you want the COVID numbers to go down is for the economy to reopen and business to pick up. But if it doesn't pick up, even with the COVID numbers going down, then you might have to wait, and it's difficult.
I also heard April that according to one big bank, their payroll volumes have reduced by 30%, I think, in the third quarter. So that's pretty scary.
Yeah, so actually, when you look at the unemployment numbers in the NCR, the unemployment rate still went up. Actually, it didn't go down. So maybe people have decided, after reopening and seeing it's taking a while for business to pick up, they just decided to close shop.
So, Sir Juanis, given that expectation, how do we protect it? How do we protect ourselves from that possibility?
The situation I already portrayed a while ago will build in April scenario. Because you might be wondering, why would the market have to consolidate another 3, 4, 5 months after the rally or pull back a bit? It's because of exactly what she said. So it's not, we're not diverging in our view. I mean, we're coming to that understanding. However, why did the market blast off knowing that and exactly when all those things have been coming out? I can only suspect, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think although Metro Manila mayors decided to keep GCQ up to the end of the year, which is quite a disappointment, we did see hotels come back on 100% full occupancy. They were allowed. We did see that travel requirements now reduced the need for permits. So despite putting yourself back in GCQ and staying there till December, there are motions in between that are telling you that they're loosening things up inside. And I think that's what the market's picking up. And remember, markets are very much forward-looking. They're not looking at what happened to earnings to last month or last quarter. They're looking at what's happening the next 3 months, 6 months down the road. And that's what they're building into their price today. They're not looking at last quarter earnings, but last quarter earnings, if they're surprising, it might create some volatility. And so in line with that, your first move will probably be this, seeing that there is some degree of improvement in the COVID situation. However, reality will come knocking on our door. That will generate the consolidation reaction. And if things prove better, then eventually you can have your continuation swing come back.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
and I want to add something lang. Because when we came out with our market briefing,
September,
July, I think, we talked about our K-type of strategy, di ba? K-shaped recovery, and of course a K-type of strategy where, we were saying if the company is resilient, you can buy the shares already. Whereas if it's vulnerable, slow accumulation should be done. So what this rally just proves to us is that that's the reason why you want to slowly accumulate. Because if you had not bought these stocks when they were cheap, when there are some indications that businesses are picking up already, may iwanan ka, di ba? So yun na lang, when the market corrects and the price is right, I think rather than delaying the accumulation, I mean, if you have money that you can invest for a bit, then you should take that opportunity to actually buy some and slowly accumulate. Because when the market recovers, you want to have a little bit in those stocks because sayang talaga yung potential gains.
Okay. I have another question with regard to another IPO that was done recently. I think Sir Juanis can answer this. What about the AREIT, sir? Is it on accumulation phase?
Yes, I believe it is. One thing I want to say that's very different about the AREIT as compared to regular stock. Remember, this is an instrument people are buying for their dividends, right? So this is not, they're not viewing this as a tradable, very fast-moving stock, because the higher it goes, then the yield of the dividend becomes less and less attractive. So you have to treat this a little bit differently. This is a buy and hold for the dividend. This is not a, jets up, this stock's going to go up 10, 20%. I don't think that's going to do that. Although as they inject more assets, and I think there was news something, I don't know, April, maybe you can talk about that in a while. But yeah, go ahead.
They just bought Ayala 30th. So there's an office at the back. And for me, that's really very exciting because initially we thought they would only have Cebu in for this year. But then they talked about that one. Well, of course, that would ultimately lead to higher cash dividends. I don't remember what kind of yield we have for 2021, but I think it's already at 6%, which really beats a lot of debt instruments. No? Yeah. So it's really very exciting. You know?
Okay, all right. Another question, ma'am. I think, would you consider buying DITO rather than Converge for the long term?
No.
No.
no, because
okay.
DITO, the listed company, still does not have DITO, the telco operations. There is a promise that it will be injected, but at this stage, it has not yet been injected. And remember, DITO will be focused on mobile. And the reason why nga, diba earlier on there was a question, why don't you just sell PLDT and Globe and just buy the faster growing Converge? The reason why PLDT and Globe are growing slowly is because of mobile. And DITO will be entering mobile, which is you have 100% of the population na may cell phones. So you need to grab market share, which means you have to cut prices. It's going to be a bloodier game. Whereas, Converge, you still have 18 million households and only 3 million have been served. So you have 15 million more to go and grab. It's a different dynamic. So in that respect, DITO will have a more difficult time. It will most likely be losing money for the next few years before it will become profitable. And it has to grab market share, so it has to cut prices. So it's going to be very difficult for the company.
Okay. I think some questions from the left field. Sir, what is your view on CHP? The price has not recovered since its IPO price of 10 pesos in 2016.
Well, I think in CHP's case, I'm a technician, so I'll just simply comment on the price activity. There has been recent movements after it rallied also up, and I know it has not recovered back to its IPO price, and I think it might take a while for that to be able to happen. But again, looking at that is just take it as a trader. If you're looking at eventual recovery swings, eventually climb back there, then maybe all right. I mean, you can take it as those price swings come along. But I would not inject a huge amount of my portfolio in there. I would just be sniping it only in rally moments because what's nice about CHP is when it rallies pretty big. But it does so in bursts. So it rallies, stops, and then it consolidates for a while or reacts. So you have to be very quick when you come inside and trading those particular stocks. If you're holding it for the long term, I mean, that's a completely different thing. And maybe April has better views of the fundamentals of CHP. But on the technical front, I'll be trading that only and not really take it too long term for the meantime.
Yeah, do we have to comment? No, but we have some issues kasi on the governance of the company because the foreign parent is charging huge royalties on the company, and it's lending money to the Philippine company at a very high rate because they said it's junk status. Okay, so I mean, how can you do such a thing, And then when the price goes down, you buy all the shares. Parang ang labo, di ba? So, I mean, we don't like it from a corporate governance perspective. So, I think, well, if you want to trade it, then maybe just look at the technical formations. But as a long-term investment, I mean, we have issues on corporate governance, so we wouldn't recommend that stock.
All right. So as the final, I think that's all the time we have for Q&A. But as a final question, Sir Juanis and Miss April, what is your fearless forecast for Converge on Monday? We get this question a lot from the chat box, sir and ma'am. April?
Ikaw Juanis.
Well, the underwriter has to do a very good job here. I mean, playing out a very big issue like this, I hope that they can put their foot up and try to be able to protect at least that IPO day. The last thing people want to see in an IPO day is a decline in an IPO price, because that usually leaves a, you know, like April said, a bad taste in your mouth. So I really hope that the underwriter can also help out in keeping things lofty. And I hope that they've managed to be able to place things well. And in light of that, I mean, the challenge is it's a very big listing. And, you know, it happened when, of course, the market has just been climbing and everybody's buying all other stocks. So the amount of funds that may go in that direction could be affected, right? So the other thing I'm also didn't really like is the fact that they allowed the local small investor base to go all the way to 1 million. I mean, this is supposed to be a small investor program, and they're increasing it up to 1 million. So to me, I get worried, because now you're giving every ordinary Joe the ability to get all the shares that they want. So if that is really happening, and if it is really oversubscribed, then you're talking about people who are holding shares out there, and I can just imagine what they're going to be doing. So I think the underwriter has to do a very good job here.
So, sir, down. I was
Probably,
told to force an answer.
Hopefully a little bit flat to higher, I hope. And then let's see. I mean, like I said, it'll be nice if it can really go up. I mean, I really pray that can happen.
Okay. Miss April?
Yeah, I have the same answer. So let's just hope and pray that the underwriters do a good job.
No.
So that the price will go up, you know.
Okay. All right. All right. So that's all the time we have for Q&A. Thank you very much, April and Juanis, for sharing your knowledge with us today. And again, everyone, we hope you've learned something in this session, and we hope that you can apply all these lessons. I mean, we have some great, of course, patterns that Sir Juanis has talked about, and the valuations that Ms. April has shared with us on Converge and also for PHR. And I hope you can use this information for not only for these issuances, but for future IPOs to come. So again, for those who are not able to catch it, you have a friend who was not able to dial in, we will be emailing you guys all the materials we've used, as well as the recorded version of this webinar. So again, thank you very much, everyone, and you have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe.